My next guest is an owner and director of Turk Hockey. Please welcome Turk. Hey, Tim.
Hey, Cappy. Thanks for having me here. Really appreciate the opportunity to be on and talk to you and have these discussions and provide anyone that's listening or watching the opportunity to gain some information from our discussions, and that's what we're in it for. We want to make sure that we are giving back to the people so that they can further their careers or use the information that they hear here to benefit them throughout their journey. So thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Tim. I looked it up yesterday. It was 2012 to 2013. You were the skills coach for my AA hockey team, the Mississauga Terriers. Viewers and listeners know that was really cool. So, Tim, let's start off here. What's your story in starting the Turk Hockey School and becoming an NHL shooting and scoring coach?
Well, a great question, man. I haven't had the opportunity to answer that in a while because a lot of people out there kind of know my story, but it's great to hear that question because it kind of brings back memories and flashbacks. When I was a youngster, I used to work for a goalie coach. I was a shooter for a goalie coach as a youngster many years ago, and basically we got to a point. This is before puck shooting machines. So myself and another individual, we worked for this goalie coach, and we would do half-hour sessions alternatively. So I would shoot for half an hour, take a break, and the other guy would go shoot for half an hour, and he'd take a break. So because we couldn't shoot for the whole evening or for 4 or 5 hours straight because our arms would fall off. So we'd use a little bit of recovery time. And after a short while, I want to say a short while, in this case, a couple of years, he would come up to us every so often and say, I've been teaching goaltending for so many years now, and in my experience, in his experience, there was no shooting schools, no specific shooting schools out there, like technical, actual shooting schools. There were goalie coaches and skating coaches, and a few of these skills coaches that would show up, from overseas, from Russia or something like that, and they hang out for a few months and then they take off. So he said to us, the two of us, he said, "You guys should open up a shooting school." And back then, he paid us in cash back then, so it was very difficult to agree to changing the business because we just had to show up and do our thing. He'd say, "Okay, now shoot low glove, and then shoot high blocker, and then do it consecutively. Shoot low glove, then high blocker, but make sure the goalie's ready." So he's like, "You guys can shoot where you want, when you want. You got all this power." When you're shooting, you should teach it. And we look at each other and we're like, you know what? No, we're okay. We just like what we're doing. We're comfortable. We're making good money. We're making more than our parents. So we're just going to keep coming in here every day after school and on the weekends and just do our thing. He's like, okay, whatever. So fast forward another couple of years, and he comes up and he got bigger. He started to get expanding his business and getting more business. And he hired another goalie coach. So we'd have to rotate through the goalie coaches, but we always did the shooting. There was only two of us. So he came up to us one day and he says, "How about this?" He says, I'm gonna open up the shooting school." He says, "And what I'll do is I'll pay one of you guys to teach a shooter in a little shooting session or in a little room back in the little area to shoot, and I'll pay you guys to also shoot on the goalies. So it just means you're going to be teaching shooting, and then you're going to be shooting for me back to back. So instead of going every other half hour, we'll be working every half hour, but we'll be alternating from teaching shooting to doing shooting for him." So we're like, "But how are you going to get players in here?" He's like, "I got it. Every goalie knows at least two players." So he put a sign on the wall, Cappy. Unbelievable. He puts a sign on the wall that says, "Any goalie that brings in a shooters for our new shooting program gets one free session." So it started to build from there. But we doubled our salary because we were working every half hour. So we were happy about that. So that went on, I want to say, for another couple of years we did that. And then finally one day, I guess we got really popular because we were exposed to his teaching delivery, his energy, his passion to improve these athletes. And he's still out there today, and he's one of the most energetic, passionate teachers in development for goaltending that I know in the whole world. And I've been around the world and back in a bunch of years. So the two of us look at each other, Cappy, and we're like, wait a minute. He's charging that goalie that much per half hour, and he's charging that shooter that much per half hour, and we're only getting this much. We can do this on our own. So, we went up to him and we said, listen, his name is Michaelis Cicero. He had the great Canadian goaltending company back then. I don't know what he calls his company now. But we go, hey, Mike. He goes, I know what you're going to say. He says, I know you guys are going to go it on your own, aren't you? And history states that in hockey, it's a pretty competitive industry when it comes to development and coaching and everything. So history states that most guys would say, you know what, screw you guys, you're a bunch of little blah, 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 get out of here. But he was so open-minded. He was so passionate about us succeeding. He wanted us to succeed. He said, okay, guys, go and do your thing. I wish you nothing but the best, and I'm here if you have any questions or you need anything. So it was a great separation. It was a great way to take off. So that's what we did. We took off, and here I am today. That other guy, he ended up disappearing, so to speak. He kind of plateaued. He's a good shooting coach, and he's doing his thing at his level wherever he is. I haven't heard from him in a while, but here's me elevating all the way up to the NHL level. I couldn't feel more blessed being able to work with the players I have over a 35-year period.
And what's the difference in your teaching style when training players such as at the novice level in comparison to training the pro level?
One of the things that comes to mind, that's another great question, Kathy. Like, one of the things that comes to mind is, and I experience this quite a bit all around the world. I get the opportunity to be a mentor. Not that I've chosen to do so, but I'd help anyone, anywhere, anytime if they ask. And one of the things I've experienced is there's a lot of people out there, a lot of development people. They only want to work with a certain age group, or they only want to teach a certain style because that works for them. Like I know a bunch of good friends of mine who I do disagree with, but support them anyways. They're like, I only want to work with junior kids, only from minor midget and up, because it's an easier process for them, or it's what they're used to. It's in their wheelhouse and how they deal with things. With me, I look at the novice player and I say, if I'm here in 20 years and you're here in 20 years, I still want to be your shooting coach. So it's important to understand that novice player, number one, we need to find out, and I've been doing research, certain players get into a certain age category, and it just depends on the market they're in. Sometimes it depends on their personal situation. Sometimes they hang up the skates a little too early for everyone's liking or mine, or they've had or been forced to hang up the skates because they have to take a side street to get to somewhere in life, and then maybe restore and revisit back again. But my job is to make sure that they keep the passion to be able to play the game at the highest level they can get to if they're willing to do it. So when I teach novice players, I can't deliver the message the same way I would to an NHL pro or any pro or a junior player, but I do send the same message. I just make it a lot more enjoyable and a lot more fun and easier for them to accept what I'm trying to teach. In some cases, like what there's doesn't matter if you're 8 years old, you're 18 or 28. Everyone learns differently and everyone does things differently. Hockey players to me, no matter what the age is, they're like fingerprints. No one's the same. So I can't be going to a guy like Victor Mete or Brendan Gallagher from the Habs, who I work with quite a bit, and teach them the same motion pattern that I'm teaching a player that's at Pee Wee, Adam, or novice age, like U12 down to U8, because their bodies are different. Their motion patterns are different. Their power output's different. So my job is partly to connect with how that player does things so that I can make suggestions to make corrections or fine tune what they're doing from a negative to a positive so that it's as comfortable as it can be when I'm teaching them, no matter how old they are. And the other thing is, I'm finding nowadays that a lot of my sessions and a lot of my teaching when it comes to specific technical shooting and scoring, a lot of the times I'm explaining to these athletes what they're doing good. So if they understand what they're doing really good, naturally, I connect the mind to what the action is, and it allows them to enhance the speed that they do it at. The confidence level is risen, the power output, because they're hearing it from someone saying, "Oh, so that's a good thing I'm doing." I'm like, "Yeah, that's a good thing that you're doing. So let's focus on that. If it's your arm that's really good, if you focus on it, it might fix your leg. It might fix it on its own, and we don't have to focus on the leg because you're doing so great with the arm. It's like the knee bone's connected to the thigh bone's connected to the hip bone kind of thing. It's all connected. So I know this is kind of a long-winded answer, but teaching novice players to pro players, it's somewhat the same with a different delivery as long as you're willing to understand who the individual is.
Right. Tim, does the communication process change when you're speaking to, either a novice player or a professional hockey player, that there's criticism, but also there's positivity in your analysis to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Constructive feedback is accepted all the time. You know, I'll always start off by like initially when I start with a new athlete or a new hockey player that I'm working with. Um, Probably to me the connection is lifelong. And in the starting points, I'll always explain to them that like these first 5, 10, depending on how many sessions is how you learn, are for me. I'm going to give you stuff, but I need to understand how I can teach you. So if I mention something or I make a suggestion and you're unsure, ask why. Ask why, and it doesn't matter if they're 8 years old. If you're wondering, I'll get in their grill. I'll be like, listen, and if this is feeling really awkward, ask me why, and then I can hopefully reiterate and explain, give examples as to why I'm trying to ask you to do these certain things or get your body into a certain position or stuff like that. And then when they hear that there's an explanation, it's rare that I haven't been able to answer a why question right away, but I've always been able to have an answer. And it's important that those athletes know, and the parents of those athletes in some cases understand that there's a level of passion and care as to what I'm doing. A lot of times I'm getting, Kathy, I get this a lot. People really don't care what you know until they know that you care. When and it's kind of like a silly motto, but it means a lot in my world when I'm teaching. I want them to know that I care about the individual. Hey, I'm going to ask you a personal question that's not related to hockey, but it ends up being related anyways, about your decision in school, why you don't like geography as opposed to math or vice versa. Because if I know they like math better than geography, it helps me to teach them. I can come up with, mathematical equations when I'm teaching technique in shooting and hockey shooting. And if they like geography, I can come up with geographical things that they can relate to, and it makes it fun when they're learning. It's like, hey, this guy knows something about this. Or if their favorite sport is PlayStation, my job is to know all the PlayStation games so I can make them a PlayStation character when they're an 8-year-old, and I can kind of like pretend I'm controlling them, but they have to do certain things a certain way to earn certain successes and to earn bigger guns, so to speak. So yeah, that's a great question.
Tim, I want to pick your brain a little bit about hockey. So I'll break the question down. Can you please tell us the essential foundations and techniques when needed for a hockey player to have a strong shot?
Absolutely. So with me, just the other day, we got back to work here under certain criteria and a lot of different rules that we have to follow. And this player came on the ice who I've never worked with before, and the particular player was 10 turning 11, so they're going from Adam into minor Pee Wee. Uh, a U12 player. I was already on the ice, and this player got ready on the outside. I'm going to jump on the ice, and I noticed a deficiency in the player's skating. So one of the things I told the parents was, like, the parent was not there because they have to drop off the player and leave, because of the rules and criteria. So I told the player, I said, I'm going to do the evaluation session. We're not going to go for the full hour. We'll go for about 40 minutes or so. But I feel like you're really struggling to maintain balance. So when shooting a puck, our body has to be in somewhat of certain control when we do so. So to answer your question about teaching the shooting part, it starts with body control, Cappy. It starts with having the ability to be confident with the ice surface that's under you. In some cases, even if players are somewhat good skaters, that slippery surface that's under us, that makes our mind think in ways sometimes that we don't want it to, because our body wants to be protected, safe, and stable at all times. So sometimes that slippery surface will take our enhancement techniques and revert back to comfort because we have to be stable out there. So I always suggest that it starts with body control prior to it even getting to the hand technique. So in my evaluation of this one player, the parent came back in and they went to pay me, and I said, "Oh, you're not going to pay me for this. Take that money and invest it in a skating coach. Get some skating for him so that he can build his confidence on his feet. Learn how to stop and learn how to turn both ways a little bit. And that's your investment. That's what my suggestion was. And they really thanked me for giving them that advice. But that one particular player follows me on Instagram and knows how popular that it would be to get together with an NHL shooting coach. And I accept those clients, but I make sure I give them the right messages. I don't tell people what they want to hear, Cappy. I tell them what they need to hear, so it allows them to make the right choices with confidence. So it starts with body control. Teaching shooting starts with body control, stability, and then it goes up through thought process and a lot of variables that take place also. But I always work on lower body control with stability when shooting a puck to start with.
Tim, so we went through the process of a strong shot. How about good passing for players?
Yeah, great question. Haven't had this in a long time, and I did a seminar a couple of years ago. Uh, I want to say it was like a pro coaches seminar, and I asked the question, is there a difference between passing and shooting? And everyone's like, yeah, there is. I'm like, no, there isn't. The only time the technique is different is if someone's going to do a sauce pass, because they have to have a little bit of touch and feel and weight on that particular pass. So that the technique might change a little bit because you're trying to add certain spin and get your blade under the puck and so forth. But in passing and shooting, one hand pulls and one hand pushes. It's where the puck starts and where it finishes, and where your hands start and finish that is critical to the success of the pass and shot. Again, I get that there's different styles of passing, but that motion pattern, if you perfect it when your hands have the range of motion and they're in the position they need to be, then hopefully, whether the pass is accurate or not, you're going to have a successful result with the power. And think of this, back to the body part, it's critical that I understand what your body's doing prior to, during, and after a shot or pass is released. If you're in a compromised position after you take a shot, then someone bumps into you, you can fall down. Or if you change your direction, like righties, they turn right after every shot, lefties turn left. It's kind of a common thing. We want to make sure that we correct that body before we know exactly what we're doing in the situation that could happen. Whatever happens after a shot is critical. Being ready for what comes next is what we want to do.
Lastly, Tim, the importance of puck possession and control.
Yeah, so you possess the puck, you can control the puck, and you can have successful results. To me, whenever a puck is not in control, Cappy, it always ends up on the board somewhere. It always gravitates to the walls, to the lower kick plate or whatever. So knowing how to go into these battle situations or these stressful and pressurized situations and coming out with the puck, or having a strategy with your teammate to come out with the puck, is just as important as shooting it. We can't possess it and prepare it. So I keep telling, even at the NHL level, I'm like, listen, every battle is won before it's fought. So let's work with the players technically and strategically on what to do and where to go, how to attack a player, how to shield the puck and protect it so that we can keep it in possession. And you can think of this. Are you a righty or a lefty?
I'm a lefty.
You're a lefty. Okay, so is this your left side on your screen?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so these are your skates and you're going down the ice. You're kind of shoulder width apart and you have the puck in control. Lefties, they always control the puck just in front of their left foot because that's where their stick sits down on the ice. Kind of you're going maneuvering forward in a straight line, and it's not always straight in front of you. It's just over to the side a little bit. So righties, it'll be over here. So think of a clock. If you're going forward, and right here in the middle is 12 o'clock, so lefties, they handle the puck between, like 11 to 10 o'clock. That's where lefties control the puck, somewhere around there. To shoot it, you got to bring it all the way over to 9 o'clock. It's got to go over here somewhere at the 9 o'clock range when you prepare load to release it. So what I try and do is I try and get players who are lefties, instead of controlling the puck here at 11 o'clock or between 11 and 10, I try to get them to control it all the way over here beside 9 o'clock, between 10 and 9 o'clock, so they can, if they have to load it, it's already there. They just got to bring it back a little bit or let their body go forward, or they can shoot it without loading it. So I have a saying, less load, more explode. And the players that prepare the puck efficiently from this position to this position, righties over here, like the most efficient preparation players are the ones that are more successful. So it's important to do drills with the puck prepared in a position as close to your release or loading position as much as possible.
That was like a masterclass, Tim. Thanks for demonstrating that. It was really cool. Moving on, Tim, how would you explain your process of creating drills, of skills training, and creating hockey development programs?
Well, it's all about the individual, number one. And we talked about this prior to hitting record. A lot of players are visual learners. So having the ability to watch games, and when I say games, I mean any games, from the NHL all the way down through to minor hockey and being in the rink. So one of the things that I like to do, if I do get the opportunity to watch games, is see how things develop, how players make choices out there. And by me understanding how those choices are made, I get the opportunity to teach it and help them to enhance into those possible situations that may occur in their futures. And how do you get good at something? Well, you got to repeat. Consistency of execution, it builds repetition and it builds consistency.
Tim, where is the game of hockey going in terms of style and skill? Because it seems like, especially in the NHL, it's all about speed and skill right now. And I remember when we looked maybe 10 years ago, it was more about, your top six, bottom six, checking. There's more that thought process. But now it's a bit changed. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, as soon as in the year 2003, 2004, the big rule changes came in. They took out clutching and grabbing. They took out hooking. They took out obstruction, interference, all that kind of stuff. So it did turn the game into speed. And I like the direction it's going in. It makes it more strategic. It makes it more, your thought processes start to elevate in the choices that you need to make. So that in turn gets all these players naturally to get their head up, their chin up a little bit more, to visualize what's going on. And that's opened the door for development people like myself to teach these players specifically just about that preparation we're talking about. Because in hockey now, you get put into stressful situations and pressurizations quicker. The more that you grow, the older you get. You've heard this before. The less time you have to do things if you maintain the level that you're in. And it's important to understand, in my opinion, that because of this evolution that's taking place, and it takes place every day, we're trying to, like I always say, goalie coaches, there's millions of them, and I hate them. I don't hate goalies, but it's the process. They make it tough on the shooters, but it's scientific, Cappy. These guys are they were white lab coats teaching these goalies now. So it's important that we, as shooters and as development people, if we're aware and we evolve with the game through our research and development, then we're going to be in a really good fight with each other when it comes to winning individual skills on the ice when you're in battle situations. And that's part of our job to do that while this game's evolving. I really like the speed and skill nowadays because it keeps me on my toes. And I just know that every time I get a chance to talk to someone like yourself or see anything else, I know there's an opportunity for me to learn something that can help me to help someone else.
As you mentioned, Tim, well, as you know, I was a former goalie, and I share the same thought as you. Is that I had different goalie coaches, and everyone would tell me something different. Is that the same in terms of being a player development coach?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Everyone's getting different information. People have their own ways and focal points of what they're teaching. Like a skating coach might say, you need to push your stride leg has to go back on a 45-degree angle. But then you work with a guy like Chara, and Chara can't push his leg on a 45-degree angle. So it's those coaches that are, I guess they're in challenging discussions with each other based on how they feel the skating stride works, or same with me, how the shooting technique works. But I never have an issue when it comes to explaining the teaching process because I let the players do it the way that's comfortable to them. And if I need to make a suggestion and a change when it comes to their technique, I'm not going to tell a player that you need to move or your whole arm has to move more than 3 inches. I'll say, let's start by moving it 2 millimeters and let's do that for a while. And then I want to get you to here, but I shouldn't do it right away because that uncomfort level is going to make them revert back to comfort. And it just seems like we won't be progressing through that technique. So if you do it in small increments, Cappy, then it can make it a little bit more comfortable for them, a little bit easier. And eventually they'll get to that goal over time if they're willing to do so. And that's the key nowadays is teaching someone who wants to be taught, who has the passion to do so and the willingness to learn.
And even going through a process, Tim, it eliminates bad habits that often is developed. Such as myself, when I was a goalie, I had a ton of bad habits. Players, I'm assuming that would be the same.
100%. Yeah. If you can minimize those bad or negative habits over a certain period of time, and then document, that's the thing that one of the things that a lot of development coaches of athletes in any sport, what they neglect to do is, in my opinion, is they're not documenting the time it takes to alleviate or change a negative or bad habit. Because I could be teaching you not to slide past your post in a power push, and you slide past it by 1 foot, and then all of a sudden you make a 2-inch correction, and you make another 2-inch correction, and that 2-inch correction has taken us 1 month just to do a 2-inch correction. So I'm not going to force you to make a 1 foot correction in 1 month because it's not going to be comfortable to you, and you'll revert back. But I know that it takes you that long, a month, to make a 2-inch correction, that I need to be patient in enabling you to make another 2-inch correction over another month. And then eventually that's going to be gone because we've done it in small increments. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. That's awesome. Tim, let's end off with this. What is your favorite hockey moment thus far in your career? Because you've had a really great career, and I'm sure there's a lot of great moments.
Well, it's ironic you brought that up, Cappy. You said that I had the chance to work with you guys in your team with the Terriers in 2012, and that ironically is my favorite. That's my favorite and most memorable year of my career. I guess I can start off by saying I was in the early summer in mid-June. I was doing a barbecue in my backyard. I'll never forget this. And my phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's Kirk Muller. So Kirk Muller, who is now the associate coach for the Montreal Canadiens, he was before, and then he left, and now he's back again. But at that time in 2012, he asked me what I was doing. I said, "Hey, I'm just barbecuing a hot dog on a barbecue here for lunch." He says, "Well, I just got awarded the head coaching job of the Carolina Hurricanes." He says, "And I'd like you to be our shooting coach. I want you to come in a development camp and do the shooting for all our prospects and all our draft picks. And I want to bring you in on a lot of the players that we're thinking that we're going to draft this year. And if you know any of them, give us some feedback on what you think." So I'm like, "That's awesome." I go, "But I'm just finishing off with the Montreal Canadiens, and they asked me when's your camp." And he told me, "Well, our camp is it's coming up. It's in July. It's in the second week of July, so you got a month." And I look at the dates for the Montreal Canadiens camp, and they were the first week of July. So it's kind of pretty cool where the Habs coach who left went to the Nashville organization, Kurt Muller, to coach at the American Hockey League with Milwaukee at the time. So we had discussions about him becoming a head coach at the NHL level, and he's a good friend, so he's confided in a lot of things in me, and I really appreciated that he did that. So I said to him on the phone before I hung up, I said, "I'm going to be there as long as it doesn't conflict with the Habs." And he goes, "Well, you can forget about the Habs. We're going to pay you $1 more anyway." So it was kind of funny that he said that, but it didn't conflict, Cappy. And so what I did was I went from Montreal's training camp, their development camp, directly to Carolina Hurricanes camp, back to back. And it's funny because that following season, when that season was over, I had been doing a lot of work with the Tampa Bay Lightning. So Tampa Bay Lightning said, "We want you to come and do our development camp." So in a period of one calendar year, I went from Montreal's camp to Carolina's camp to working for Tampa Bay Lightning in their camp in all of 2012. So I'm the only person in the history of NHL that's had the opportunity to work with three NHL teams in a period of 1 year. So I feel so blessed. That's one of my favorite years. And the players that in that 2012 year, I mean, we're talking some pretty high end players that had came out of all their drafts and that were at their camps and so on. So I feel like I've been blessed with the opportunity to do what I do, and there's a lot of other highlights in my career and working with individual players at all levels, including the NHL and how they've scored goals. I can never miss the opportunity to bring up Brendan Gallagher and just how passionate he is and how driven he is to improve, and it just shows. I mean, I'm not the anecdote. I'm not the reason why these players are doing it. It's them and the path that they're on and the people that they surround themselves with. I just feel so blessed that I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of players over a 35-year period. And I'm at a point where kids will ask me, "Hey, have you ever worked with this guy? Have you ever worked with that player? Have you ever worked with this player?" And I'm like, "You need to ask who I haven't worked with, not who I work with." It just is a somewhat of a funny joke, but you are literally sitting talking to Cappy, to the most blessed person in the world. I haven't gotten up. I don't remember. I've never woken up in the history of my life and said, "I don't feel like going to work today." Even when I'm under the weather, even when I'm not feeling well, like being in rinks and getting stuffy, like every day's a new challenge. And when I walk out my door, I make sure I look at I have a little message that's at the door. Everywhere I go in the world, I take this message with me, and I post it in my hotel room. I post it wherever I'm staying, whoever's house I'm at, whatever. And it says, "What are you going to learn today, and from who?" And if I have that mindset every day, then I know I can make not just me better, but I can make hockey players better, and I can make them better people and make them more confident. And that's my mission.
And truer words were never spoken. Tim, I want to thank you so much for doing this. Uh, just a real honor and pleasure speaking with you and hearing your insights about hockey. Um, I admired you when you're coaching with us, and I still admire you today. So thank you so much for this.
I really appreciate having your time, and I also admire what you're doing, and I really hope and wish for nothing but the best of success in anything you choose to do, Cappy. So thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim. Tim Turk, everybody.